In this episode, I'm going to hopefully convince you to stop thinking that your print bed is the best one out there, and that you should probably buy less filament and spend the money on more beds. Let's go. Now here's the thing, I'm guilty of this just as much as anyone else is, but I've used a lot of printers now, and with that kind of objectivity has come some interesting observations. Observations that shouldn't really come as much of a surprise, I guess. Like, for example, how all printers seem to use the same control boards lately. And just writing that sentence now means I have to open up several printers and take pictures of their control boards and show you them. Great, quick video, they said. Anyway, the point I'm making is that there is no one bed to serve all purposes, and I think that's why we all argue about it so much. It simply depends on what you're doing and what you're printing. And that can present some unique challenges that another person just doesn't have. And even within the different use cases we all have for printers, there's still scope for personal preferences too. So what I want to do is once again run through all the bed types, but this time with my personal discoveries about the strengths and weaknesses of each bed type, and help you spend some money on the way, especially if you're fairly new to the hobby. I'm sorry, but there's a good chance that watching this video is going to mean you're going to buy a new printer bed. Sorry about that. But what won't cause harm to your wallet, oh yeah, we're doing segues now, I've been waiting for this moment, you have no idea, is the sponsor of this video, PCBWay. PCBWay will make your PCBs for you, but they'll also print for you too, as in 3D print, with materials that maybe you can't print with. And loads of other services too, like flexible PCBs or purple PCBs and edge connectors and stuff. You can visit the link in the description and get some money off your first order. So go design some PCBs, then print a case for them or something. Hobby stuff, right? It's what we do, at least when we're not trying to fix our 3D printers anyway. Okay, back to the episode. First up, we have this stuff. This kind of bed surface has a lot of names, but it's basically a textured black plastic surface, and it usually comes as a sticker, although sometimes it's already pre-applied to a surface. And it is cheap, which is why it was the default surface on the original Ender 3. It's less common recently, but some printers do still ship with it. My Geeetech A20M came with a version of it, for example, fairly recently. It is great at sticking. You won't have issues with it for any material at all, which is why in some ways it's a great bed surface for beginners, but it is awful at releasing parts. This type of bed is probably why these things exist. And even then, it's a frustrating time all round. My tip for you on when to use this kind of bed is the same as the magnetic one that I'll get to in a minute. Next up, we have the bog standard carborundum or ceramic coated glass, which is very popular and with good reason. The bed is literal Marmite though, which is something that only makes sense if you're British. Please do not spread Marmite on your bed. This bed type divides opinions like no other bed type, and there's actually a very simple reason why. It's the most unforgiving consumer bed there is out there. It's not even enough to say you have to be millimeter accurate, you have to be nanometer accurate with your leveling on these beds. They work really well for larger parts and parts with less isolated details because any thin or spindly parts on the first layer are prone to being walked around the bed instead of stuck down, thus ruining your whole print before it's even started. My tips with these kinds of beds is to run the first layer at higher than 65 degrees Celsius to stay above what's called the glass point on most filaments, especially PLA for example. That keeps them gooey long enough to stay stuck down. And also use brims on anything large with corners. Oh, and if you're new to printing, then you probably don't know not to use these beds with PETG. Very important. It works perfectly fine until it doesn't. Plenty of people will tell you they've not had problems with it, but they will, given enough time. The next bed type is PEI, which is one of my favourites, but it's actually two beds in one. I don't have a lot of time personally for the smooth PEI version, which a lot of people do like, because I think it doesn't have much advantage over the glass we just talked about. All the same rules still apply. If you're doing a model with a detailed first layer on smooth PEI, you're in for a frustrating time. The narrow bits are going to peel up or not stick. Again, raise the temperature. Even as far as 75C on this kind of bed is okay. But I think there's something very particular with these kinds of beds. Do not leave the nozzle touching the bed while it heats up, because the bed is also a thermoplastic. There will be a temperature at which the bed will melt. Textured PEI is the same surface, but it's a whole different set of rules. If you're thinking all these beds look the same, by the way, it's because they actually are. I think a company called Energetic makes all of them. This is powder-coated steel with a texture and a very thin layer of PEI powder-coated onto it, and this gives it the cool amber colour. These are pricey compared to other beds, even more so than glass, but they are the Rolls-Royce of bed surfaces. The texture gives most filament types something to bite into, so adhesion on the detailed parts is better, but you still have to print the first layer hot, or chances are you'll lose adhesion. And very small parts will still sometimes fail, especially if you're doing a whole bed of parts. But this is becoming a more popular bed type for a good reason. And one of those good reasons is its ability to release the part when it cools down, which is something that PEI does, glass does, but the textured beds, like the next one I'm about to talk about, they do not. The next bed type I want to talk about, I have a historically rocky relationship with. It's both my least favourite and most favourite bed type, the magnetic textured bed, also known as the bed the Ender 3 Pro comes with. Or if you're watching this in a couple of weeks, maybe the bed that the Ender 3 Pro used to come with. I don't know when they're going to discontinue that printer. Anyway, the surface is the same as the first bed I showed you, give or take, but it bends and it's magnetic. And this kind of solves the problem of getting the parts off. They are cheap enough to replace now and then, and they have one special power. They are super reliable when it comes to adhesion. I don't think actually that I've ever had a part come loose on one of these beds if I've had the first layer in the right height. They would pull the bed off before the part would detach, it feels like. This is the bed that you absolutely want to be using if you are printing a whole plate of parts on a 20-hour print and you don't want to come back to distressing scenes like this. And honestly, if I was running a print farm where I did a lot of small parts or a lot of that kind of thing, I would probably choose this kind of bed. So that's actually all the normal common bed types, but I guess we should give a mention to another couple of bed types before I tell you what I think you should do if you want my advice. There's FR4 or Garolite, which is surprisingly hard to get here in the UK, but if I don't mention it, people will be mentioning it in the comments. I know about it. It's a circuit board material without the copper on it, and it's basically a fiberglass-based material, and I don't get on with it personally, but many people do. I think I'd probably file that as an advanced surface because you have to get the leveling correct with it. There's still masking tape over glass, which I actually still think is a good workaround for difficult prints, and you shouldn't really be laughing at it. There's also bare glass, which really I don't think anyone should be using in 2022. And there's treatments you can apply to smooth beds, like bare glass, that will pretty much make any bed work. They generally turn their performance characteristic closer to using a textured bed. If you don't mind dealing with these sticky, messy options or just having your print photos looking gross, then they do work. Not for me though, but it's personal choice. So what do I suggest then? Well, here's the thing. Some of these bed types use magnets to hold them in place. Namely, smooth PEI, textured PEI, and the flexible magnetic bed type. All three of these might not be available for your exact print bed size, but if they are, then owning all three of these and using them appropriately for the print you're doing is going to absolutely save you time and waste, I guarantee it. If you've got a plate of tiny parts to print, use the flexible magnetic one. If you're doing some print-in-place thing for social media bragging, use the textured PEI. If you want to mirror smooth first layer on a large piece, smooth PEI. What you have here, if you use these three beds, is a quick change system that covers most of your options. Just remember to recalibrate your Z offset or level your bed in between so that the nozzle doesn't hit the bed. This is of course where fancy bed leveling helps. Of course, if you have a glass bed factory fitted, you're kind of stuck there unless you want to change away from glass completely. That's about all I wanted to say. Hopefully, from now on, we could stop arguing about which bed type is best and start arguing over which bed type is best for different applications instead. What do you think? I know I missed out that one bed type you use. I didn't talk about sugar water on leather, etc, etc. Sorry. Comment about it below. I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.